Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Sunday edition of Humanity Matters Weekly. I am your host, Dr. Philip Fletcher, and I am glad that you joined me either live or watching the replay. Also happening over on our podcast, Humanity Matters, that happens on the podcast over on anchor.fm and wherever you get your podcast content. So I am glad that you are joining me today. Got a few things I want to talk about, chop it up about, and also introduce a new segment. So I am very excited to launch the Libertarian Reflection. But we'll talk about that more as time goes on. As always, please connect with me on my various social media, whether that's on Twitter, at Phil Fletcher. You can find me as well over on Facebook, Dr. Philip Fletcher. Connect with me on YouTube. Please subscribe. I'm trying to hit that 200. Okay, trying to just steadily grow so I can continue to provide content, educational material, talking about all types of great things: faith and philosophy, nonprofit leadership, social issues, engaging in ideas on what it means to be a human being and flourish. And so that's why we're here. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I would greatly appreciate it very much. And then, as always, share it. And then, as always, the center of gravity is around the website, philipfletcher.org. That is philipfletcher.org. And that is Philip with 2 L's. Also, Patreon. Always looking for supporters. $5 would be awesome. $5, be able to get some exclusive content that I'll be sending my Patreon supporters, as well as some cool swag and some other great things. So please jump over to Patreon, and over on Patreon, just put in my name, Philip Fletcher. You'll see my handsome face come up with this image that you see right here. And I would gladly appreciate and just be very thankful for the support through the Patreon channel. I'm trying to really grow and do good things to help people as we continue to move through 2021. Also, you can check out my podcast, again, Humanity Matters Podcast, over on anchor.fm or wherever you get your podcast content. So whether you're just working, sitting at the coffee shop, working out, taking a walk or a run, you're in the office or working at a studio or whatever, it's your opportunity to listen to some great content. You'll hear some things that's recorded here, but also some other things that's not. And so, once again, appreciate the support from all of you. Very thankful. So, what's going on in the news? So, President Joe Biden, good old Prez. I tell you, Joe, he always has something good to say. So, in the White House, he had, I don't know if he has, it's a stream of consciousness thing, kind of like what the former President Donald Trump was going through. But they were talking about addressing the rise in violent crime that's happening in some major cities in America, right? And in it, and this is from the BBC, all right, headline: Biden, insurrectionists, quote, need nukes, close quote, to take on U.S. government. Whoa, okay. The subheadline: President Joe Biden says at the White House that insurrectionists would need a lot more than guns to take on the U.S. government because it is equipped with a nuclear arsenal and warplanes. That's saying a lot, right? So here's the thing, kind of clashed with actually what happened on January 6th. Now, I don't believe it was an insurrection, okay? What happened on January 6th was a bunch of people who drank too much of the Kool-Aid and went a little too far, right? They've arrested a whole bunch of people. That's a whole other issue. People who have been kept in solitary confinement. In fact, one guy here from Conway, Arkansas, he got arrested. Apparently, he went in Nancy Pelosi's office, kicked up his feet, allegedly took a laptop. But nonetheless, you've got these people who have been arrested. In fact, a grandmother was convicted this past week for an unlawful parade, right? And she was just there touring, and they picked her up later. Just dang. But nonetheless, it's been said that those individuals were insurrectionists seeking to overthrow democracy. What it was actually is what we saw was, with the increase in the military, the fences that went up, was the state, the federal government, felt the pressure, right? They didn't get their tighty-whities in a wad, right? When Minneapolis was burning, Portland was burning, all in 2020. But when that stuff came close to home, to the Capitol, all of a sudden they lost their lunch. So these people were called insurrectionists, and the former president sought to overthrow the government because of the election. But here's the thing: those people didn't have weapons. No handguns have been reported. No semi-automatic weapons have been reported. No fully automatic weapons have been reported. So I'm trying to figure out, how do you execute successfully an insurrection against a government building that's already got security there, right? I mean, it is the White House, it's the Capitol, specifically the Capitol, where the House of Representatives was meeting. And these people had no weapons. So President Joe Biden says insurrectionists need nukes to take on the U.S. government. Nukes. Well, that implies they've got nukes, obviously. We've got nukes. So if insurrectionists are coming, President Joe Biden, what would you do with those nukes? I don't know. I mean, once again, President Joe Biden, man, I tell you, he's our president. I'm not going to be like, that's not my president. He's my president, right? And he can say some things that's just like, dang, wow. So, pray for the man, pray for him and his wife and their health and all that good stuff. But he says some things that are just like, dude, what are you doing? What are you thinking? How about meeting with the governors and the mayors of these cities and trying to figure out how to constitutionally address crime? People don't like to live in violence. People don't like to live in communities where they may die in a bathtub, sitting at their kitchen table, in their living room, or their kids leaving for school and they don't come home. So now this runs into the whole issue last year about defunding the police. Yet Gallup poll came out and said that a majority of, in this case, like Black Americans, they don't want a defunding of the police, right? And honestly, when this discussion is talked about, typically what is thought about is urban areas, the inner city, right? There are issues there, and it's very complex. And it requires the input of the people that live there, as well as elected officials. And it's going to require, one part, law enforcement, because people are getting killed. Property is being destroyed. But it's also going to take some nurturing, walking with young men and women. It's going to take some helping people, leading them to do more constructive things rather than taking the life of another person who statistically looks like them. People who live in proximity to one another right? That's typically who they're going to have altercations with. So come on, President Joe Biden. The whole nukes thing and needing jets and all that kind of stuff. I mean, come on. Let's move away from the hyperbole, sir, and let's get down and figure out what is it that we need to do to address violence in some of these major cities. And that's my thoughts on that. Hey, this is Dr. Philip Fletcher, and this is Humanity Matters Show for Sunday. And I am glad that you are watching this either live or on a replay. Hey, if you want to send me an email, I love emails. I get messages from time to time, emails from time to time. And if I'm moved, I'll read one here. Humanity Matters Podcast at gmail.com. Humanity Matters Podcast at gmail.com. So what else is going on? So universities, Brandeis, one of the influential ones in the United States of America. Well, they came out with this updated offense list, right? Phrases, words that are not to be used on their campus. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, there's been a lot of this. You can no longer use these words, these phrases. You can only speak to people in these ways. If not, something negative is going to happen to you. So Brandeis, all right, they put out this list. Now, this list is pretty interesting, right? Because I say a lot of these things. I'm going to be honest with you. All right. Killing it. Take a shot. Take a stab. The interesting one is trigger warning, right? Trigger warning. Because that's what people have been using for a long time. I've been triggered, right? Or this is going to be a safe space so that people are not triggered. But now that's an offensive term. So the last couple of years, it's been the in vogue phrase to use. Put it on flyers. It's made as announcements and lectures or meetings, especially, before COVID happened and, students were getting together, right? People would use the term, I'm triggered, right? Or that triggers me. Or another way of saying is that sets me off, right? Killing it, right? Somebody's killing it. But now that term is looked at as something that is offensive. Let's look at it. Instead of using the word of killing it, because it's oppressive language. Now, I don't know. For them, they're trying to justify it as you don't need to equate that to murder, right? Take a shot at. Well, I've heard that used on the basketball court. Take a shot. Shoot your shot. Typically that's used in the context of hollering at somebody because you're interested in him or her. Take a stab at it. These are phrases that we've been using for decades. Now, all of a sudden, apparently, it is the language of, now pay attention, the oppressor. Hint, hint. Here's another one. Picnic. Explanation. The term picnic is often associated with lynchings of Black people during which white spectators were said to have watched while eating, referring to them as picnics or other terms involving racial slurs against Black people. Now, I've heard that. All right. Done some studies on that. There's a back and forth on that, whether that was actually true. Okay. But I go to picnics all the time. I love barbecue, love watermelon. No, I hate watermelon. Oh, I like potato salad. Excuse me. Kool-Aid. Right. Maybe we should stop saying the term, you all up in my Kool-Aid. Is that an oppressive term? So all this is interesting because typically, from what I understand from linguists, languages, words, phrases develop over time, right? Within a society, taking into consideration, values and beliefs, so on and so forth, words begin to take shape, right? And they're used, they're commonplace. Then other words, colloquialisms, phrases, some just begin to fall off and it is not used anymore, right? There was no force that happened on it or anything like that. It was just the natural, organic course of how human beings interacted with one another. This, Brandeis, they can do what they want. They're college. You step on their campus, okay, whatever. What does this mean for free speech? It stifles creativity. It stifles the opportunity, in my estimation, for individuals just like to express themselves in a manner that is reflective of, I don't know, the community, the neighborhood that they came from. So now what we've got is a group of smart people, academics, a few who are determining for other people these things you will say, these are the things you will not say. So here's my question, right? So if you have a phrase like killing it, right? Which I can make an argument, comes out of the inner city, or shoot your shot, which is another term that you can make an argument that comes out of the Black community. But yet you've got these academic types who are saying, no, you can't use those terms. Now who's being the oppressor? I don't know, it's something to think about. That's a good thought experiment. We need to be careful because we're heading down a road that, we have to be careful. Free speech is a beautiful thing. The opportunity to express one's thoughts and ideas, right? With also the understanding that your thoughts and ideas, once verbalized, they're going to be met with acceptance, right? They're going to be met with, people are going to keep moving, and they're going to be met with critique. That's part of the beauty of free speech, because as we're speaking, right, part of communication is a sender and a receiver and feedback. The main elements of communication. So as I'm communicating as the sender, I'm looking at how that information is being received. Somebody could applaud, clap, clap, clap. Okay, what I'm saying is cool. Let me delve a little bit more, use that phrase a little bit more. That's a natural, organic thing that is happening. Somebody could be like, whatever. They could keep it moving. A third person could be like, I don't like that. Okay, well, let me do some digging as to why that individual doesn't like that. Let me understand the context. Maybe I can only say it in this context and not other contexts. This is the beauty about free speech, because it gives us the opportunity to once again learn, to interact with our environment and say, hey, you know what? I have to go through a decision-making process and understand that there are things I can say here, things I shouldn't say here, or you know what? I just need to say these things, and the consequences are what they are. So, if you work at a university or college, I would ask you to take a pause on just limiting speech. Because the other thing about a college or a university, and I'm one now that's teaching at one, is the opportunity to hear different ways things are being said. The opportunity to hear different ideas, the opportunity to hear different arguments so that we can learn from one another, so that we can continue to move towards the truth in whatever area that is. It's just something to think about. It's something to think about. Be right back in a moment. So I want to offer some very specific thoughts regarding our society by applying the philosophy of libertarianism. Religiously, theistic personalism is very important to me. If you pay attention, I often reference the Imago Dei. So mystic personalism, the works of Monnier, Brightman, King, Burrow are influential, in my thinking and application in my nonprofit work. Equally, I found a significant complement in the thought of libertarianism, which includes Mises and Bastiat, Friedman, Nozick, Rothbard, as well as Soule and the late Walter Williams. So this is a libertarian reflection, a future with less law enforcement. This past week in Minneapolis, Derek Chauvin was sentenced to 22.5 years as he was found guilty. All right, that happened a couple of months ago, of the murder of George Floyd, and then he was convicted. And all this occurred last year, the death of George Floyd. This tragic event reignited a discussion on the relationship of law enforcement and Black Americans. During the last year, reflecting on this tragic event, what happened to Breonna Taylor and others in 2020, I came to the conclusion the most effective and long-term solution was increasing the gap between law enforcement and all private citizens. Notice I said all private citizens. I want reform regarding the quality of relationship between law enforcement and private citizens. This reform, though, is stifled as long as we believe such change is only to occur between law enforcement and one particular ethnic group. We critique and we have anger towards the action of a particular law enforcement officer or department. Okay, understandable. Yet, when will we direct our outrage to those men and women who uphold legislation and pass legislation which manages our lives, and when we stray, causes law enforcement officers to impose upon our lives? As long as we allow our elected officials to maintain and pass laws which really function to manage large aspects of our behavior, the probability of interaction with a local, state, or federal law enforcement officer is significantly high, in some cases at the cost of an individual's life. So I imagine reform which leads us down the road in which one day we can see less of our law enforcement, calling on them only in cases where there's a threat to your physical life or my physical life or the theft of our property. I imagine a reduction in laws within our society, and as such, there will be a reduction in the need for law enforcement departments receiving equipment I use in the military. I imagine by reducing the laws, we have a greater power and freedom to use the property we purchase, no longer seeking permission from the state. I imagine a future by reducing these laws which manage our behavior and cause law enforcement interactions, we can address such social concerns like fatherlessness, over-incarceration, and recidivism. These are solutions. And these are solutions that are not for the benefit of one particular group, but for the benefit of all of us. All of us because we are citizens of this country. This has been a Libertarian Reflection. Hey, so y'all, thank you for joining me for the Humanity Matters show. Once again, please connect with me on any of my social media outlets, Twitter, Facebook, Humanity Matters here. Please subscribe on the YouTube channel. I would greatly appreciate it very, very much. Also, connect with me on Patreon. Become a $5 a month supporter. That would be awesome. $5, it can go a very, very long way. So once again, remember to be loved, to be kind, and to be generous. And if we remember to live in hope, we can do the impossible. I'll catch y'all again next week. When I say your name, it says you exist and that you matter. I can't transform what I don't think exists. I won't transform the person I don't think that matters.